Let's talk about Andrew Tate. Over the last several months, more and more people have asked me what my opinion on this particular individual is. And I've really resisted making any kind of video or any kind of mention on the topic because I'm not the type of person to have an opinion about an individual as a whole. What I have found is that even the most awe-inspiring individuals have flaws, and even the most flawed individuals have things they can probably teach you. So when I see a person, I think, what can I learn from this person, both in the positive and in the negative? What can I emulate about this person that's good, and what can I avoid in this person's behavior? So I try not to say this person's good or this person's bad as a blanket statement, especially people who are in the media and all over the place, and maybe their public persona or the way a particular video is cut isn't all that honest. So I try not to do that. However, one thing I do discuss and occasionally even attack and get into is ideas, right? I'm big on ideas because ideas are huge for learning. So what I want to talk about today is one particular video Andrew Tate made, which was about the subject of day game. Very relevant to me and very relevant to this channel. So first I'm going to play it through all the way uncut because I want it to be an unbiased sample, and then I'll go through and break it down and I'll give you my thoughts on his thoughts.
I could sit outside that mall for a month and analyze every single chick who walks in there and not see a single 9. And you're telling me every weekend you go find the only 9 in the mall. Do you fuck? She's a 5. And you're desperate, Mr. Daygame. You're a dork. And your idea of a 9 is actually a 5 because you don't live in the real world. If you were actually a G, actually a multimillionaire who traveled the world, actually in the higher echelons of society, you'd understand what a 9 is. And there's none of them in Daygame.
Okay. So I guess he's not a fan of day game. And he's also not a fan of guys who do day game, which is also an interesting outgrowth of that. But let's take this bit by bit and talk about it. So there are some interesting points here, some interesting philosophies here, and I think it's worth addressing because for whatever reason, I've seen more and more people espousing these types of views over the last few years. So yeah, let's get into it.
I could sit outside that mall for a month and analyze every single chick who walks in there and not see a single 9.
Okay. So for this statement, this is pretty easy to verify yourself, right? Go to a mall and see what you see, right? If you do go to malls and see hot girls and wish you could approach them, then to you at least, there are girls that are attractive and worth approaching, right? So you can verify this one yourself. And I'll grant you that the mall may not be the most highly populated with hot girls area on the planet, right? Like for example, certain yoga classes or high-end fitness places or New York Fashion Week events or something like that. Maybe there is a higher population. But to say there are no hot girls at the mall, are you kidding me? I mean, maybe if you go to like some tiny small town mall where everybody's like mothers and their 13-year-old daughters, yeah, maybe that there's not someone you want to approach there. But Rodeo Drive is a mall. Harrods is essentially almost a mall, a big store in London that has a lot of high-end stores and very attractive girls. Go to Rodeo Drive, go to Harrods, tell me there are no attractive girls there. That's insane. That's ridiculous. So I just categorically unaccept this, but you don't need to take my word for it or his word for it. If you see hot girls in your day-to-day life, then you know there are hot girls in your day-to-day life. If you never see hot girls in your day-to-day life, then you're not leaving the house. Regardless of my opinion or Andrew Tate's opinion, though, you live life. You go out, and when you are out, especially in nice areas, you do probably see hot girls. If that's the case, you know there are hot girls in the real world in day game. There you go.
And you're telling me every weekend you go find the only 9 in the mall. Do you fuck?
Why the anger? I don't get it. Right? If you are a multimillionaire on top of the world, why do you need to insult some guy talking to a girl in the mall? That's his life. He's doing what he can, trying to make the best of himself. What do you care, right? Why do you have to insult him? You can just say, do you? Why? Why are you trying to be extra mean? So the reason I think why Andrew Tate does this, and it's actually very smart marketing, is he's trying to be extra polarizing. Right? Part of his brand and part of why he's risen to attention is he's essentially in a way putting a target on his back. He's realized, I think, that being loved or hated gets you a lot of attention. Being overlooked doesn't, right? And so he just is polarizing, I think, for the sake of being polarizing. But there's no need to swear here. There's no need to insult someone here. It's just strange, man.
She's a 5, and you're desperate.
Okay. So a couple things here. Number one, the guys who do day game well are some of the least desperate guys I know, at least compared to the average guy, right? Truly average guys get like 1 date a year or 1 date every 6 months. Guys who are good at day game are getting several dates a week. So they're not desperate. And then this whole idea of she's a 5. Let's break down what a 5 would actually be, right? In any kind of human population statistic, there's a bell curve. Like height, weight, IQ, they all break down into bell curves, right? A 5 literally would be the medium point on that bell curve. And so by definition, half of the women you see would be above a 5 and half of the women you see would be below a 5 in any random place you could go. And you want to take a mall as an example. A mall actually probably has more attractive women on average than certain other places. Take a mall versus, for example, a Walmart store. Mall's going to have hotter girls on average. A mall versus the DMV. The DMV is actually a nice cross-sectional average right there. So anybody who's hotter than the average person at the DMV is above a 5 by definition, right? Now, what is a 9? Okay, you can say that 1 girl in 10 is a 9. Maybe you could say that it's in that percentile, or you could say that maybe there's a clustering of women towards the middle and fewer girls than that are actual 9s. But a 9 is not that rare, just by definition. By literal statistical definition, a 9 is not that rare. The other thing that's really interesting, and this is a theme in this video, is this whole like, my rating scale for women is better than yours. In my experience, guys who have a lot of women or are happy with themselves with women don't care about somebody else's rating scale. They're like, I'm sleeping with this hot girl. Cool. You're sleeping with her. Are you happy? Do you like her? Cool. Good for you. Right? They're not like, your girlfriend's ugly. Like, who does that? Right? Are you dating her? Are you happy? Cool. Awesome. Good. Right? Typically, again, the people that do this are people that are trying to put someone down, people that stand to make money by making someone feel inadequate. Also, weirdly, and this is unrelated, but the people that have this really, really high scale and like trying to like, I'm really selective, a lot of them are virgins, to be honest. I'm not saying Andrew Tate's a virgin, I'm sure he's not. But a lot of people that have this like, my scale's better than yours thing, they're virgins, and that's their like excuse or their rationale for not having approached, not having tried, those kind of things. In any case, like, just in my experience, people who care a lot about somebody else's scale or rating other people's girlfriends is very unhealthy, and they don't tend to be very happy people.
You're a dork.
Okay, possibly. Possibly the guy doing day game is a dork. And to be fair, if he is a dork and is getting results from day game, good for him. Good for him, right? It's actually true that a lot of guys start in day game because they are sort of dorky, right? Typically, guys who are getting girls left, right, and center in their lives without any effort don't start doing day game. Not to say that they couldn't improve their lives by doing it. They probably could too, but they just don't need to, right? So for example, I'll give you a personal story. When I was in college, I was a college athlete and I didn't want to drink, and for that reason, I didn't want to join a fraternity. So I didn't. And a lot of the guys who were going to the fraternity parties and meeting girls that way, they had no need to go do pickup. They had no need to walk around the campus meeting girls because a lot of the hot girls were coming to their parties and they could meet them that way, and they never had to, and they never learned the skill. I wasn't doing that, and I also was a pretty introverted person. I wasn't engaged in a lot of like social clubs or doing a lot of other things in college, so if I wanted to meet girls, I had to walk around and meet girls, and so that's what I did. And so I got really, really good at it. And then here's what ended up happening. A lot of those guys that were in the fraternity at various times throughout my college career, because they were on my soccer team as well, they would point out a girl and be like, oh, that girl's so hot, I don't know her, I've never met her. And I was like, I was on a date with that girl last week because I walked around campus and I talked to her, right? And that girl was out of your reach because she wasn't in a sorority and she didn't come to your fraternity party, right? And so, and leaving college, a lot of those guys who were in frats and did really well in college, now they haven't learned how to meet girls outside of a party situation, outside of going out and drinking. And so either they have to go out and drink a lot, which is, it's fine if you enjoy it, and that's their lifestyle, or they can't meet girls. And as they've gotten older and more of their friends are settled down and married, if they're not married, or if they're married and divorced, or if they've just been a player for a while, it gets harder and harder for them because they can't generate those situations all by themselves. Had they learned day game like I did, their dating life would get better and better and easier every single year because I actually learned a skill set. Now, during the start of college, during the first year of me doing game and then being in a fraternity, they probably got more results from being a fraternity than I did from doing game, mostly because I didn't take risks on my dates. But, in the end, they might have actually slept with more girls that first year than I did. But by the second, third, fourth year, and by now, it's completely the other way. And so this is an area where you're learning a skill set. This is an area where, yeah, it doesn't start out as the easiest thing in the world. But here's the thing, and I love this word dork, right? In a way, in college, I was a bit of a dork, right? I wasn't the coolest guy. I wasn't the most badass guy. But by learning a skill set, I got more girls than the guys who were. And actually, even if I had joined a fraternity, the way I was in college before I'd learned game and this kind of stuff, I might not have gotten many girls even from being a fraternity because I would have been maybe the dorky guy in the fraternity. But doing cold approach, I got lots of girls, I learned a skill set, and now I'm doing better than those guys. So the dork label's funny, but I actually like it, right? The fact that you're saying the day gamer's a dork, you're saying this guy who's getting results in day game is a dork, yeah. Day game is an area where you can be a dorky guy and you can get results, and you can also learn to become less dorky through the skill set.
And your idea of a 9 is actually a 5 because you don't live in the real world.
Okay, so now he's going to tell us what the real world is. Because your day-to-day life and your experience isn't what's relevant to you deciding what to do in your life. His day-to-day life and his experience is what you should listen to, right? Because wherever you live, whether it be Indiana or London or Australia, wherever you are isn't the real world. Where he lives is the real world. Let's hear about the real world.
If you were actually a G, actually a multimillionaire.
Oh, so the real world means being a multimillionaire. Okay. What percentage of people do you think are multimillionaires? It's pretty small, right? Yeah. If I was a multimillionaire, yeah, there are easier ways for me to meet women than day game. I mean, even in my current lifestyle, night game is maybe in some ways easier than day game, at least for volume of girls. But yeah, if I was a multimillionaire, I could buy a nightclub. If I was a multimillionaire, I could sponsor yoga retreats and be the face of the retreat. I mean, there's plenty of things you could do as a multimillionaire to get really hot girls. If I was a multimillionaire, I could start a modeling agency, right? There's plenty of things that you could do. Most of us aren't multimillionaires, right? And so to say that if we're a multimillionaire, we'd do better, fine. Also, by the way, even doing day game, if we're a multimillionaire and could do day game at exclusive events that few people can get into, better off. If we're a multimillionaire and could have clothes where girls see us and think, oh my God, he's rich from the first moment, we might do better doing that. There's all kinds of things that money can do. Money can help you, yeah. But to say that the real world is being a multimillionaire and that's your solution is don't do day game, instead go become a multimillionaire. That's really hard. That's really hard. I mean, I've been working on money for a while. I'm not a multimillionaire. I'm guessing most of you aren't either. Also, I've had clients who are multimillionaires, and I do much better with women than they do. If you're a multimillionaire, professional athlete, and world famous, you may not ever have to learn game. You may get away without it. Or maybe when you retire and fade from the social limelight, then it would have been better to have learned game anyway. Who knows? But anyway, depending on your lifestyle, you may not have to learn game. But if you are a multimillionaire computer programmer, you're not meeting girls in your job. You have to meet them somewhere. Game is going to help you. All right? So just having money doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get girls unless you specifically do things either with that money or for that money related to girls.
A multi-millionaire who traveled the world, actually in the higher echelons of society, you'd understand what a 9 is, and there's none of them in day game.
There's none of them in day game because 9s don't ever leave their houses. 9s just sit in their apartments all day long, or their mansions probably, or their mansions being kept by their sugar daddies all day long, and they never go out on the street. They never go shop, they never go get manicures, they never go to the gym. Nope, 9s just sit at home. It must be really shitty being a 9. It almost sounds like being in prison. Point is, hot girls do go outside. They do leave their houses, and that's actually one of the beautiful things about day game. If you're talking about access, night game, for example, usually when the really, really hot girls go out, they go to the really high-end clubs, and so you might have to buy bottle service or have connections or something to meet them. But the beautiful thing about day game is while it's not every single day, the hottest girls do leave their houses. The hottest girls do go out, and they are actually accessible and available in day game. It does happen. Also, my guess, and this is just surmise. This has nothing to do with what Andrew Tate's saying. I'm extrapolating. His view of day game probably is talking only to girls by themselves, right? That's what the dorky day game guys do. If you can talk to groups of girls, you definitely see groups of hot girls out all the time, right? It's true that hot girls don't go out by themselves that often, but hot girls do go out in groups all the time. Hot girls go to nice restaurants a lot, and you can do day game in and around and at those restaurants, for example. So this idea that like 9s don't leave the house, that would be a really shitty life for 9s. I don't buy it. So those are my thoughts on that video, and I do want to make it clear that it's about that video. These are not my general thoughts on everything Andrew Tate's ever said. I haven't watched the vast majority of it. I've watched almost none of it, to be fair. So I don't have views on that necessarily. I also don't have views on him globally as a person. I'll leave that up to you and to, at this moment, the Romanian authorities. But I'll leave that to individuals aside from myself to determine the validity of the things he's saying overall, at least, or maybe we'll do it on a separate video. But if I ever do other videos, it'll be about a specific thing he said or did, not about a person globally, because I'm just not about that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, though. Hopefully you agree with me on daygame, because I'm right. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned a little bit, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care.